Welcome back to my channel Celeb Buzz. Please share and subscribe and press the bell icon for new updates. Terry Thomas really hated him more than anyone else. Terry Thomas was born Thomas Terry Stevens on July 14, 1911 in Finchley, London. He was one of the most special and loved funny actors to ever be on British stage and movies. People knew him for his smile with a gap between his teeth, his smooth way of acting, and his perfect sense of when to be funny. He made a special place for himself in British movies after the war. His character on screen was a charming rich guy who was kind of sneaky, often holding a drink in one hand and making smart jokes. This became something people loved and knew right away. But behind his cool look was a really good worker who cared a lot about his job and made every movie better. Terry Thomas started working in entertainment in the 1930s as a band leader, a cabaret artist, and later as a radio show host. He was in the British Army during World War II, where his natural skills for being funny and making people feel better helped him make and perform in shows for soldiers. His big break came in the 1950s when he started making movies, starring in a bunch of popular British comedies like Private's Progress in 1956, Blue Murder at St. Trinian's in 1957, and maybe most famously, I'm All Right, Jack in 1959. Where he played a really funny, sneaky business manager. He became a regular in smart British comedy movies that made fun of social classes, government workers, and society after the war, with jokes and knowing looks. One of Terry Thomas's most important things was his ability to play the sneaky guy character without making him a real bad guy. His funny characters were often selfish, proud, and scared, but so charmingly funny and able to laugh at themselves that people found them really lovable. His rich, fancy voice and special phrases like "you're an absolute shower" became things everyone in the country said and made his place in British popular culture solid. He was really good at big gestures, using his face that showed a lot of emotion, his crisp way of talking, and of course the famous gap between his front teeth, which became an unexpected trademark and sweet quality. In the 1960s, his fame spread around the world. Terry Thomas was cast in big American and European movies, often playing different versions of his well-known character. He appeared in group comedy classics like It's a Mad, 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 Mad World in 1963 and How to Murder Your Wife in 1965, where his perfect funny skills continued to steal scenes alongside international stars. Even though he was often cast as the same type of character, he managed to keep his acting fresh, adding small differences that showed how deep he was as an actor. Whether playing a silly military guy, a scheming rich person, or a scared adventurer, he stayed consistently delightful and always fun to watch. But while his work life was full of laughter and success, his personal life was eventually touched by sadness. In the late 1970s, Terry Thomas began showing signs of Parkinson's disease, a brain sickness that gets worse over time and would slowly take away his ability to perform. He stopped acting in the early 1980s, and by the end of the decade, his health and money had gotten much worse. In a heartbreaking turn, the man who once showed perfect confidence and funny elegance was living in almost no money. It was a deeply moving moment for the public when fellow actors and fans, including Michael Caine and Richard Briers, put together a fundraising show to support him in his final years. It was a touching sign of how beloved he was in the entertainment world. In the year 1937, an important and life-changing moment happened in the early life of Terry Thomas when he met a remarkable and exciting South African dancer and choreographer named Ida Florence Patonski, known professionally by the interesting stage name Polanski. She was a lively and highly skilled performer with a talent for dramatic flamenco, a type of dance that needed intensity, passion, and exactness. Polanski had traveled to London looking for a partner for her flamenco act, someone who could go well with her fiery stage presence with rhythm and character. However, during her tryout process, she quickly saw something unique in Terry Thomas. Not his ability as a dancer, but rather his wit, funny timing, and special personality. Rather than looking for a traditional dance partner, Polanski made an inspired decision. She chose to cast Terry Thomas not as a co-dancer but as a funny opposite to her performance. With her theater instincts guiding her, she imagined a new kind of act that mixed her dramatic flair with his weird and charmingly upper-class funny style. This creative partnership led to the formation of a cabaret double act cleverly billed as Terry and Potansky. Their performances quickly got the attention and love of London audiences who were drawn to how original the duo was. The elegant dancer next to the sharply dressed, gap-toothed comic with his big manners and fancy accent. Their chemistry on stage was obvious, mixing visual comedy, dance, satire, light musical numbers, and they quickly became a favorite on the cabaret circuit. Offstage, their partnership grew into a romantic relationship as well. It's a bond between. Terry Thomas and Polanski got deeper quickly, leading to their marriage on the 3rd of February, 1938 at the Marylebone Register Office in London. Following their wedding, they set up home together in a fashionable address at 29 Bronwyn Court in the leafy and artistic neighborhood of St. John's Wood, the area known for its artsy culture and closeness to central London's theaters and music. Halls offered them a perfect base from which to launch their creative careers. Despite their early success and the attention the Terry and Polanski act got, the double act proved short-lived. After just 3 months of performing together in this format, the duo faced the harsh realities of the entertainment industry where new things often get old and tastes change quickly. The formal cabaret act broke up, though both stayed active in the performance scene. They continued to work together on a smaller scale, taking on smaller jobs around the cabaret circuit, including appearances in various clubs, music halls, and private functions. These performances, while not as high profile as their earlier work, kept them involved in the changing London entertainment scene and helped Terry Thomas gain valuable experience and visibility, a big milestone in Terry Thomas's career came shortly after on the 6th of June 1938 when he made his very first radio broadcast. He appeared on the BBC London regional dance program titled Friends to Tea. It's a popular early evening show featuring music, light entertainment, and variety acts. Although this should have been a triumph, Terry Thomas would later admit with honesty and self-making faux humor that the performance was far from his best. In his own words, "I didn't give a very good performance. I was a dismal failure." This honest thinking showed both his critical self-awareness and his never-stopping drive to improve. Far from being discouraged, he treated the experience as a lesson in the tough demands of radio performance, which was very different from stage work. By the end of the summer of 1938, new opportunities showed up when the popular and stylish bandleader Don Rico took an interest in the pair. Seeing their potential, Rico invited them to join his orchestra. In this new collaboration, Polanski took on the role of pianist, a position that showed her musical talent beyond dance, while Terry Thomas served as the host or master of ceremonies for the orchestra's performances. This role suited him perfectly as it allowed him to use his talent for making things up on the spot, wit and charming audience interaction. His character, effortlessly smooth, yet mixed with funny absurdity, helped make his reputation solid as a rising comedic talent within the world of entertainment. Fast forward several decades, and the personal relationship between Terry Thomas and Polanski had long since gone bad. After years of growing apart and leading more and more separate lives, they formally divorced on the 1st of February, 1962. Their arrangement had lasted for the previous 8 years, during which time Terry Thomas had pursued other romantic connections. Most notably, a significant relationship with the Australian singer and actress, Laura Desmond. Desmond, a talented and lively woman, had a brief but emotionally intense relationship with Terry Thomas. However, by the time of the divorce, this connection had also ended with Desmond choosing to return to her homeland of Australia, where she would go on to marry a surgeon and enjoy a stable personal life. The departure of Desmond left Terry Thomas emotionally adrift. The end of this meaningful relationship caused him considerable sadness and forced him to re-examine his personal life, though known publicly for his smooth and comically distant manner. Privately, he was deeply affected by romantic disappointments. In the wake of this heartbreak, he returned to a bachelor lifestyle, which, though outwardly glamorous and filled with social engagements, likely hid a sense of longing for deeper connection. That emotional gap was filled unexpectedly during a holiday in Mallorca. It's 2 years earlier when Terry Thomas had met a young and bright woman named Belinda Cunningham. It's 21 years old at the time of their meeting. Belinda brought a fresh energy and honesty to his life. Despite their big age difference, a genuine and loving bond developed between them. Their romance grew gradually and steadily over time, ultimately leading to marriage. In August 1963, the wedding took place at the Halstead Registry Office near Colchester in Essex. A modest and private affair compared to the spectacle that might have been expected from a man of Terry Thomas's theatrical stature. Their union marked a turning point in his life. Belinda provided him with companionship, stability, and unwavering support, qualities that would prove essential in the years to come. In 1964, their marriage was blessed with the birth of their first and only child, a son named Timothy. Timothy was born at the Princess Beatrice Hospital in London, a well-regarded maternity facility. The birth of his son brought a new dimension to Terry Thomas's life, giving him a sense of grounded purpose that had often escaped him during his decades in show business. Fatherhood, while late in coming, became one of the most cherished aspects of his personal life, and Belinda would remain by his side throughout the later, more challenging years of his career and health. Among the many figures Terry Thomas met throughout his long and varied career in entertainment, there is perhaps no individual who caused such gut-level hatred and lasting contempt from him as the American actor Mickey Rooney. While Terry Thomas was a perfect English gentleman in manner, although one whose exaggerated aristocratic behavior was often part of his funny character, he had an inner code of conduct that valued politeness, wit, mutual respect, and a certain style, even in professional disagreements. Rooney, by contrast, seemed to represent everything Terry Thomas found disgusting in a colleague. Loud, rude, entitled, crude, and above all, unrepentantly rude. Their professional interactions left a permanent mark of disgust on the British actor, and the feud, or more precisely the one-sided hatred, became almost legendary in its bitterness. Their paths most famously crossed during the production of It's a Mad, 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 Mad World in 1963. A sprawling ensemble comedy featuring a huge army of comic stars. While the film was a box office success and is often remembered for its chaotic charm, the behind-the-scenes atmosphere was far less harmonious. Terry Thomas, who was used to working in groups with decorum and an air of collaborative professionalism, was utterly horrified by Rooney's behavior on set. Rooney, at that stage in his career, was struggling to maintain relevance and financial stability. Perhaps, driven by his desperation to reclaim the spotlight, had adopted a domineering, arrogant manner on set, barking orders, stealing scenes, treating technicians and fellow actors with breathtaking disregard. He often interrupted rehearsals with crude jokes, shouted over the director, and created a toxic atmosphere that grated against Terry Thomas' cultivated sense of civility. To Terry Thomas, Rooney's relentless selfishness and coarse behavior were more than just irritating. They were an insult to everything he believed the acting profession should be. While Terry Thomas enjoyed the idea of comedic excess on screen, he had no tolerance for it off-screen when it came at the expense of basic human decency. He was particularly offended by Rooney's insatiable need for attention and his tendency to put down those he deemed beneath him, including crew members, extras, and even waitstaff during catered lunches. Terry Thomas reportedly told friends that working with Mickey Rooney was like being trapped in a room with a vulgar, bad-tempered child who refuses to be quiet or behave. A damning remark that captured the depths of his disgust. The animosity went beyond mere annoyance or temporary frustration. In later years, when asked about his least favorite co-stars or worst on-set experiences, Terry Thomas would, with almost theatrical exasperation, recount his run-in with Rooney. It wasn't just a case of clashing personalities. It was, in Terry Thomas's view, a matter of principle. Rooney to him was not simply rude, but the embodiment of Hollywood at its most grotesque. Overindulged, emotionally unstable, and devoid of humility. Despite Rooney's obvious talent and long legacy in the industry, Terry Thomas seemed unable, or perhaps unwilling, to forgive his behavior. Unlike the many showbiz spats that fade over time, Terry Thomas's disdain only seemed to harden with age. As if Rooney had scarred some essential part of his sensibility. There is even an often retold story from years after the filming of It's a Mad, 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 Mad. It's a world when Terry Thomas was attending a party in Los Angeles and learned that Rooney might be in attendance. Without hesitation, he reportedly made his apologies and left immediately. Muttering under his breath, Life is far too short to endure that little man again. For someone who made a career out of playing eccentric but lovable scoundrels, it was a rare instance of genuine hatred, unfiltered, unapologetic, and deeply felt. In the end, Terry Thomas's loathing of Mickey Rooney was not rooted in a single fight, nor in professional rivalry. It was born from a fundamental incompatibility of values and amplified by the close-quarters intensity of film production. Terry Thomas, Mickey Rooney was the only person he would openly say he truly hated. And for a man who wore his disdain as elegantly as his trademark gap-toothed smile, that hatred spoke volumes. On the 9th of April, 1989, the actor Jack Douglas and Richard Hope Hawkins organized a benefit concert for Terry Thomas after discovering he was living in virtual obscurity, poverty, and ill health. This gala, held at the Theatre Royal Drury Lane, ran for 5 hours and featured 120 artists with Phil Collins topping the bill and Michael Caine as the gala chairman. The show raised over £75,000 for Terry Thomas and Parkinson's UK. The funds from the charity concert allowed Terry Thomas to move out of his charity flat and into Busbridge Hall Nursing Home in Godalming, Surrey. He died there on the 8th of January 1990 at the age of 78. The funeral service was held at St. John the Baptist Church, Busbridge, where the theme from Those Magnificent Men and Their Flying Machines was played. It was cremated at Guildford Crematorium.